The president said, I never talked business to anybody. But Devon Archer testified that the point of putting the speakerphone down at those meetings, which is what Peter was asking about, was just to demonstrate access, that Hunter had access to the then vice president and to sell the Biden brand. So what do you say about that, John? And when will the president actually answer some of these questions to put some of this to rest himself?
Oh, my goodness, Martha. I mean, he just did with Peter. I mean, he's the one who called Peter over and had Peter, risk life and limb cutting across that barrier. I mean, he specifically called Peter over.
Right.
And he knows Peter. He knows Peter's not going to ask some softball question about how his vacation was. He knows who Peter is, and he answered that question. And I don't know what it's going to take.
He didn't answer whether or not he was on speakerphone in those meetings, John. He just said, I never talked business to anybody.
The question was about business, and he answered it consistently with what he said so many times before. He's been very consistent that he wasn't talking business.
But the question is, was he allowing his presence, on speakerphone to speak volumes? Was he allowing that presence to say, this is my son, he has access to me, while he's talking to Ukrainian businessmen, Chinese businessmen, Russian businessmen, after the invasion of Crimea, as Katie Pavlich just pointed out?
I just don't know how many times he's going to have to say no to the same question. And he said it consistently. He's been consistent about this. There were no discussions about business with his son or his son's business partners. And again, he called Peter over. And I'm not saying he knew that was the question, but he certainly knew it wasn't going to be a softball when he answered it.
There's this testimony now where one of your son's former business associates is claiming that you were on speakerphone a lot with them, talking business. Is that what?
I never talk business to anybody. And I knew you'd have a lousy question.
Well, why is that a lousy question?
Because it's not true.
I don't believe you. There better not be another incident. I'll take the motion under advisement.
Oh, my goodness, Martha. I mean, he just did with Peter. I mean, he's the one who called Peter over and had Peter, risk life and limb cutting across that barrier. I mean, he specifically called Peter over. Again, he called Peter over.
Why is that a lousy question?
Because it's not true.
Why is that a lousy question?
Because it's not true.
James, and then behind you, has the last word. But James, go first.
Green, thank you as always. Admiral, thank you. The House Ways and Means Committee yesterday released documents, their authenticity nowhere challenged. That included a July 2017 WhatsApp message sent by Hunter Biden to Henry Zhao, a Chinese Communist Party official, which stated in its entirety, and I quote, I am sitting here with my father, and we would like to understand why the commitment made has not been fulfilled. Tell the director that I would like to resolve this now before it gets out of hand, and now means tonight. And Z, if I get a call or text from anyone involved in this other than you, Zhang, or the chairman, I will make certain that between the man sitting next to me and every person he knows, and my ability to forever hold a grudge, that you will regret not following my direction. I am sitting here waiting for the call with my father, unquote. So just a couple of questions about this. First, does this not undermine the president's claim during the 2020 campaign and the reaffirmations of that claim by his two press secretaries since then, that he never once discussed his son's overseas business dealings with him?
No, and I'm not going to comment further on this.
We're good.
I'm not. James, let me save you some. Let me save you some breath. If you're going to ask about this, I am not addressing. I know you do more than I'd like you to have. I am not going to address this issue from this podium. I'm just not going to do it.
All right.
I'm not going to do it.
Where was the president on the
Thank you. Thanks, guys. Have a great weekend.
The father's house.
Okay. All right, James, and then behind you, has the last word. But James, go first.
I am not going to address this issue from this podium. I'm just not going to do it.
All right.
I'm not going to do
Where
it.
was the president on the
Thank you. Thanks, guys. Have a great weekend.
A few moments later.
Can I follow up on that?
No, I just called in somebody. Go ahead.
Yeah. So Kirby wouldn't answer James's question, though. Are you going to answer the question? I mean, not a reasonable question to ask whether the President of the United States was involved, as this message seems to suggest, in some sort of a coercive conversation for business dealings by his son? Is that something, if he wasn't, then maybe you should tell us.
So here's the thing, and I appreciate the question. I believe my colleague at the White House Counsel has answered this question already, has dealt with this, has made it very clear. I just don't have anything to share outside of what my colleagues have shared, and so I would refer you to him and the DOJ. Just not going to comment from here.
Text message.
I will. What I can tell you is I know that my colleague has dealt with this. He addressed this at the White House Counsel. I just don't have anything else to share. I just answered the question. I just answered the question.
No, you didn't. Yes or no? Was the president involved in the shakedown attempt?
Stephen, I just answered the question. I just said. It's not up to you how I answer the question. I just answered the question by telling you my colleagues at the White House Counsel has dealt with this, and I would refer you to them. Go ahead.
Can you just remind us what your colleague said from the White House Counsel so we have it from you at the podium?
I would refer you to them, and they will share their statement with all of you.
My question is about your statements from that podium. You've stated that the president stands by his comment from the 2020 campaign that he never once discussed his son's overseas business dealings with his son. And you stood at that podium and you reaffirmed that. Do you stand by your reaffirmation?
What I will say is nothing has changed. Nothing has changed. And I will leave it there. Anything else, I will refer you to the White House Counsel.
This is not a change?
I just answered the question. You just asked me, does my statement change? I just told you nothing has changed. That's answering the question. Go ahead. Go ahead. Go ahead, Stephen. I'm calling on your colleague right now. Go ahead.
Thank you. To follow up on my colleague, is there anything that you can say with regard to this text message and what the president's son was alleging? Was the president there or not?
I would refer you to my colleagues at the White House Counsel. They have addressed this, and I refer you to them. Go ahead.
Karine, have you spoken to the president about this? Have you asked him whether he was there with his son on July 30th?
This is not a conversation that I've had with the president. Again, I would refer you to the White House Counsel.
Do you plan to have that conversation with the president?
No.
Did the president speak with the Attorney General at all
I
night?
I cannot say if the president had had a conversation with the Attorney General last night. What I can refer you to is the White House Counsel's office as it relates to the allegations. They've already addressed this. This is something for them to deal with. I refer you to the Department of Justice on anything else if you don't want to speak to the White House Counsel's office.
Is that true? Can you
I can't speak to that. I cannot speak to the president's mindset. Again, I would refer you to the White House Counsel's office.
I cannot speak to the president's mindset. I cannot speak to the president's mindset.
The voice of the most powerful man in the world is a black, queer, immigrant woman.
That's right.
Done on purpose. The voice of the most powerful man in the world is a black, queer, immigrant woman.
Again, this is a historic administration. I'm a historic figure, and I certainly walk in history every day. I cannot speak to the president's mindset. This is not a conversation that I've had with the president. Again, I would refer you to the White House Counsel.
Do you plan to have that conversation with the president?
No. I just answered the question. It's not up to you how I answer the question. I just answered the question by telling you my colleagues at the White House Counsel has dealt with this, and I would refer you to them.
Do you stand by your reaffirmation?
What I will say is nothing has changed. Nothing has changed, and I will leave it.
I don't believe you. There better not be another incident. I'll take the motion under advisement.